It is the Air Raid podcast brought to you by VivaTheMatadors.com. I am Ryan. I'm joined by site manager Kyle Jacobson. How's it going, boss?
I'm doing good. How are y'all?
Good. And I'm also joined by Mr. Clutch Maitland Rutledge, who's next man up for the podcast this week. How's it going?
It's going good. Very good.
So let's just jump right into it. The players had a meeting without the coaches, and it was really interesting that this took place. It was something that we had mentioned on the pod, the recap pod after the West Virginia game, after that kind of embarrassment. But this is what Luke said in the presser, and I'll get your thoughts. Basically, everyone needs to do their job. The coaching hasn't been the issue, but the players need to step up. So he's kind of defending the coaching a little bit, which seems to be a lot of fans are on the really trying to attack the coaching at pretty much every chance they get, offense, defense, special teams. But what did you take away from this, and what does that mean for the team going forward?
Well, it just sounds great. Luke would, have a players-only meeting like this, and he's definitely stepping up as a captain of this team and this defense in his short time here. Every time I hear the job, all I think about is Bill Belichick, obviously, and it sounds good that you said this players meeting was immediately after this game. Was it after this game?
It was probably either Sunday. It was probably Sunday, either late Saturday or Sunday.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to point that I think it's good that they had this pretty much right after the game on Saturday, just because they need to get their mind right after having a very tough loss like this. 48-17, it was a blowout. Fans were really filing out of the stadium by the second quarter when it was 24-7, a score around there. And Cliff obviously pointed out in the press conference after the game that it was embarrassing, especially for all the alums that came in for homecoming. And yeah, it's good to hear that things like this is happening. And I like the fact that Luke is sticking up for the coaching staff, because Cliff's been taking a lot of heat, really unfair heat. And it just sounds like to me that the players are saying, hey guys, we got to get our minds right. We got to go out there and we got to just play better, especially with a very tough Oklahoma team led by Baker Mayfield coming in this week. So I'm glad to hear that that's happened.
Yeah, I think the players-only meeting is a good sign. I mean, there's really and so I don't know if it'll actually if it'll turn into anything positive for us, but at least they're trying something new, trying to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and keep moving forward.
Yeah, I had a big thing that I was going to send over to you, Kyle. It's going to be a epic rant and vent session about coaching, the art of coaching, and I decided against it because I really didn't want to pour everything out there and either have you shoot it down or take some more of the comments that we had in the past about me being like Davis Webb's mother and everything like that. But basically, I'm my day job is being a coach, and I coach baseball, but I'm on my staff, there's a former strength and conditioning coach that used to work with the Atlanta Braves. He now runs a program for a university in St. Louis. I'm around sports psychologists that work for the Cardinals and the Mavericks and the Rangers. They work with our guys a lot, and you learn quite a bit on that side of things. And one of the big things that you take away from being a coach, everybody thinks they can be a coach. A lot of people don't have the temperament to be a coach, but the main thing is your job as a coach is, number one, is to meet your players halfway. A lot of people think the mark of a good coach is being able to motivate players, being able to pull them by the ear, use a cattle prod, whatever you want, scream and holler to get them to do what you want. But that's actually not necessarily the mark of a good coach. It's just kind of how that team works out, and every team is different from year to year. And I think even Mike Leach talked about it, about how you have to treat different players, differently, with some that can take that. Wes Welker can take you getting into his face and getting him motivated, whereas like maybe a Michael Crabtree has to be a little bit more kid gloves, as it were. And then you also have to go with, once you do get in that person's face, how are they going to respond? They may be able to take it, but at the same time, they may shut down on you as opposed to trying to improve themselves and work harder. So I love that Coach Kingsbury said he wasn't going to be a rah-rah guy just for the sake of the fans. If you think that Cliff Kingsbury is not passionate about this team because he's not showing the level of emotion that you want or that you yourself have as you're watching it on TV, I think you need to reevaluate why Coach Kingsbury is here to begin with and what he's trying to do here. So I really like the players stepping up. I remember a lot of times I would take my captain aside, and they're young, they're in high school. A lot of them aren't necessarily up on leadership, but I would sit there and say, hey, you need to go talk to your team, and it needs to be without me. And he would go over there, and they would have a team-only meeting, and the next time we would run into a rough stretch or effort wasn't being applied, it would be another team meeting without me being there or even having to tell the captain to do it, and that's how you start that leadership. One other thing we were talking about is the mental tough side. We're going to get into that with Kyle. Your key to the game is a big one that I really like. But when you talk about mentally preparing players and being mentally tough, to a certain extent, that's inherent in the player from the beginning before they ever get near the coach. There are some players that are absolutely gifted that have zero mental toughness. There are some people that don't have a speck of athletic ability but have the mental moxie of a Navy SEAL and can take it. And if you think that mental toughness could be taught, go ask Coach Witt and ask him how many people dropped out of Green Beret training, or go ask a Army Ranger how many people dropped out of Ranger training, or Navy SEAL. How many are there? They're not a lot. If there were, if mental toughness could be taught, everybody would be a Navy SEAL. Everybody would be the Special Forces. But you just can't find those players. They're special. And that has very little to do with actual coaching. So I'm just going to leave it there. I know I even went on a rant there, but I'm really pleased with this. I knew it was going to happen, and I love that the players are taking accountability for it. However, that brings us to our next topic. Corey Delphine is transferring. He's leaving the program mid-season. I think we kind of saw this coming from things that have gone around on Twitter a little bit. I forgot who brought that to our attention on Slack, in Slack, about he retweeted something a Houston coach said, and it was kind of odd timing, and we kind of said, well, he's probably thinking about transferring. He has announced it, and I'll read you the what he said, and then we'll get your thoughts. I'd like to thank Kirby Hocutt, Coach Kingsbury, for the opportunity to be a Red Raider. I also want to thank the fan base for being there with me throughout my recruiting and playing stages of my career, but after talking with my family, I will be transferring from Texas Tech University elsewhere to continue my academic and athletic career beginning in the spring. Good luck to my brothers and the rest of the season. Finish strong. I will always have love for you boys, this town, and this university. #Wreckham. Signed, Corey Delphine. And Kyle, what do you make of this?
Like you said, we kind of saw it coming. He had all the talent in the world. There's no doubt about that. He could have gone to pretty much any school in the country coming out of high school. If you look at his 24/7 and Rivals profile, he had quite the offer sheet. But even in spite of that, he was not receiving much playing time. He fell to really fifth on the depth chart. Justin Stockton, Quentin White, DeMarcus Felton, and even DeLeon Ward against West Virginia were all getting carries ahead of him. And I think that was attributed in the past to him not picking up on some of the schemes, especially with pass blocking, which in an offense that throws as much as we do is a pretty key element for the running backs. So I wish him the best. I think he's leaving on pretty good terms, just was a little bit dissatisfied with the playing time. And we wish him all the best, and I think he'll probably go somewhere that maybe runs the ball a little bit more. And like I said, hope it works out for him. I think it wasn't the best fit for him here at Texas Tech, and that's all right sometimes. And I think it ultimately was a playing time issue. So.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kyle. I think the playing time issue was a big deal. Like you said, tremendous talent, could have gone to a lot of schools, a lot of offers. just about playing time. If you think you're a very talented running back and you need to get some playing, it's just time to think about going somewhere else. And you're right, falling to fifth on the depth chart at Texas Tech is not where he wants to be right now. Obviously, DeLeon Ward is getting really the late handoffs and the blowout of that game. So that really gave us an indication that I think Dolphins' time is really, really up. So yeah, but I like the message he sent, thanking everybody, Kirby Hocutt, from Cliff to the players, wishing them luck, and using the hashtag Wreck'em. So I like that he still has love for the campus and the town, Lubbock, everything like that. So I wish him luck, and hopefully we'll see him again on television, some big plays for maybe somebody else. But I wish him the best, and hopefully we'll see him making some big plays in the future.
Now, Kyle, a lot of fans, when this news came out, they were talking about, well, this is another high-profile recruit that is leaving the program early via transfer. And what is wrong with Cliff and his coaching staff that they can't keep these people happy? And some of the wording was kind of off with how they're saying, Cliff needs to keep these people happy, or quote unquote give these players playing time, which is not exactly what you do at the college level. But is this but do you necessarily agree with some of these fans that are talking about how players are transferring, and obviously that's something that points to something systemic within the program? Or is this just kind of the culture of college football today, where if it starts out, you're obviously highly recruited, but as you go and you're not getting the PT, you're just going to transfer and take your chances somewhere else?
I think a big part of it is the culture of college football. I think we started to see that mostly with the quarterback position, but I think it's kind of permeated every position on the field. And I think also you can contribute that to the expansive coverage of all recruits now in high school. And, they just get, and I don't blame them for this happening, but the media just kind of blows them up so big. They think they can go anywhere, step on campus, and contribute day one. And, really a lot of times it takes till your third year to contribute. And so a lot of guys get patient and move on. But I disagree with the criticism that Cliff just allows, our best players to go somewhere else. Dauphin was certainly talented, but like we said, he's fifth on the depth chart for a reason. If we put him out there instead of DeMarcus Felton or Justin Stockton, it would not have ended well. He would have missed blocks. He would have not known which play to run, whatever. And so it is a loss from a talent standpoint, but as far as actual productivity on the field, and I don't mean this as a shot at him, but he really didn't do much, and that's okay. He'll be a better fit somewhere else. But the other guy that I think people are talking about when they say that is Nigel Bethel. Same thing. I mean, all the accolades in the world coming out of high school. I think he had one interception in 2 seasons and played for one of the worst defenses in college football. I think he was a cancer to the team, in the locker room, and it's kind of an addition by subtraction type deal. So I don't think you're really missing Nigel Bethel right now. And you have to look at the other side of the coin. You added transfers. You have a linebacker in Luke Stice, who's obviously a leader in the locker room, and then producing for you up front, you have Colin Hill and Andre Pipkins. So part of it's just the industry, and it's the nature of the beast. You're going to lose some guys to transfers. You're going to gain some guys to transfers. Nick Shimanek is a guy who transferred here. So I'd say
we're having slight audio issues, Kyle, as you mentioned before, but that's okay. It is what it is on this Thursday night, and I'll go ahead and tell everybody this is probably going to be the shortest as far as editing goes video pod I'll do, because I got to get some rest. I'm going to Lubbock in the morning. So I will say, as we close out this topic, Maitland, do you ever think we'll see these guys go back to a way it was in the early 2000s, even before that, where once you made that kind of stance as a player that you're going to go to a certain school, that you're going to stay at that school, that you're not going to just transfer. If you think about some of the quarterbacks that came through in the Leach era who were all fifth-year seniors, whether it was B.J. Simmons, Sonny Cumbie, Cody Hodges, who just was like one up after the other, who knew they were only going to get 1 year. But that was that 1 year, and they went on. And you kind of think about it today that they may have transferred and gone somewhere else, knowing that they were playing behind Kingsbury, and even to a certain extent, Stephen Sheffield,
Sticks,
Sticks, and some of the others who were playing behind Potts and Harrell and stuff like that. So, do you ever think it'll kind of go back the other way and kind of settle down into some of these players will stay and wait for their opportunity, even if it's just for 1 or 2 years?
Well, I mean, I still see several players on the Texas Tech roster, regardless of position, that are planning to stay here. I know kind of the quarterbacks, the receivers, maybe. It is looking a little bit different. I mean, I am kind of looking over my shoulder, and seeing, hey, that guy's on his way out the door. He's going somewhere else. We can get more playing time, or just wanting just feeling like it's not a great fit here. I do feel like playing time is the biggest deal that influenced these kids to transfer, and I don't blame them. But yeah, Ryan, I love the fact you pointed out all the some of the past quarterbacks we've had. They even though they may have gotten 1 year to start and play, they still stuck through it. They learned behind other good quarterbacks, like Potts was learning behind Harrell. Daggy was learning behind Potts for a brief period of time, as well as Sheffield, Sticks, as you mentioned. I hope that someday we go back to that, because the current quarterbacks that Tech has, obviously Mahomes, he's definitely somebody who's going to stay for his whole time at Tech. I believe as long as he has his job and he's playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and he feels like that playing at Tech gives him the best chance to get a shot at the NFL. So I hope that one day we do see it, but I do agree about the fact that in today's game you are seeing more transfers from real skill positions of players around the country and college football today. So I hope we get back to that, just because I would like to see players like Dolphine or tremendous talents that come to Tech stick. It would be great, because I feel like that. Mentioned Dolphine was fifth on the depth chart. Quentin White is a senior. He's going to be gone next year. Felton and Stockton, those guys are young, but I really haven't seen anything from them that could have really they really leaped off my screen. So if Dolphine had stayed, who knows? He might have down the road, depending on how the season gone, might have stayed. I don't know.
Yeah, he's only redshirt freshman.
Yeah.
So you have that opportunity to next year. As a sophomore, you still have 3 years ahead of you, so who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Moving right along, Big 12 expansion. Something happened on Monday after the reaction pod. Kyle, you know a lot more about this than I do. The Big 12 seemed to pass on any expansion, and the candidates, and some of the candidates seemed pretty bummed out, whether it was BYU, Cincinnati. They were like, we kind of belong at that level. But the Big 12 passed. Can you fill us in on that and what happened and what went down and why?
The Big 12 essentially decided not to expand, probably because it's not profitable, and in my opinion, they don't want to extend any kind of contract long term. I think the Big 12's days are numbered, and that was kind of the driving force behind opting not to expand. I think BYU, Cincinnati, and Houston were probably the final three that they were considering. But I don't have any inside information or anything, but if I had to guess, I'd say Texas and Oklahoma are planning their exit before the grant of rights expires in, I think, 2021. They'll probably leave a year or two before that. And so if they expanded and added 2 teams, that would add stability to the Big 12, probably would have extended the grant of rights and the TV contracts, which is not what those 2 schools wanted. And as those 2 schools go, so goes the conference.
Yeah, I kind of see this. I was thinking about this and seeing the current conference teams separate and break up, and you kind of almost see Oklahoma go into the SEC. You see kind of Tech going Pac-12, kind of see OSU going Pac-12. You almost kind of want Texas to become an independent. You know, they could basically hold on to all the rivalry that they had in the Big 12 by doing those as our non-cons, technically throughout the season, so they could still keep the OU game. They can still play Tech, among others, and I think that would work out well. They have their own network and everything, and they could basically survive as an independent. But it's kind of interesting that we're kind of looking into the twilight of the Big 12 here as we go in the next 4 to 6 years. But anyway, we're moving right along. I just wanted to kind of throw in that news if anybody didn't hear it. I'm sure everybody did. But we have some people coming to town. They're the land thieves, as the old boss used to call them. And that is the University of Oklahoma. Now, interestingly enough, I'm going to get your thoughts on this. We're going to run through, obviously, some returns and some injury reports. But OU is ranked 11th in the nation in total offense at 525.3 yards per game. Interestingly enough, though, they're only 74th in the nation in total defense. They're giving up quite a bit of yardage, which kind of gives me hope when you're looking at this game, it being in Lubbock, and how for all of our problems that we had last year, that even at halftime we were still hanging close with a couple of turnovers. But 74th in total defense, does that surprise anybody that they're that low on the defensive totem pole?
Well, I mean, coming into the season, I think a lot of people thought they were going to be better. I mean, this was a team that was picked to really be a big contender for the Big 12 title in the college football playoff again, make back-to-back appearances. They did lose some talent with Zach Sanchez, safety, going to the NFL. I think he plays with Carolina now. So, you lose Charles Tapper to the NFL, who's playing for the Cowboys. I'm not they were supposed to be better. I mean, I knew that their offense was going to be something to be a force to be reckoned with this year because of P. Ryan, Mixon, Westbrook, and of course Mayfield. I guess I'm kind of hasn't been better, but when I look at some of the players they've lost, I understand why they're 74th and they've given up that much yardage a game. Bodes well for this area can get going very early in the game.
Yeah, they do rank 6th in yards per play at 7.2. I think Texas Tech is Texas Tech is ranked 5th. I think they're just above that on yards per play. So there's a lot of equal, obviously with Lincoln running the Oklahoma offense, there's going to be a lot of similarities in offensive output. But having spoken of Lincoln Riley and Baker Mayfield are returning to Lubbock for the first time since they left. And obviously Lincoln left when Ruffin McNeil wasn't hired to be the head coach full time after Leach's exit, and Ruffin McNeil went to East Carolina. Lincoln followed him to be the OC, and the rest is history there. And I think Lincoln actually holds more resentment against Tech than Baker does. He's been a little bit more quiet about it, but when he does speak about it, it's you never really think about it. I think last year when they were talking to Mayfield, they questioned Riley on Mayfield's thought process and emotional state going into the game, and Lincoln was quoted as telling Baker, it's personal for everybody. And you're sitting there going, wait a minute, why is it personal for you, Lincoln? I thought, pretty much you left Tech on good terms, but apparently not the way things went down, and he's been very professional about it. This obviously is a storyline that has been kind of run into the ground now, but it is kind of interesting when they're coming back to Tech. A lot of adrenaline will be running. What do you expect the atmosphere to be like? I know there was an article posted just today on BeWithTheMadOrs.com about not letting not succumbing to hate. Kyle, what? Go ahead and tell us about that article, and also what you expect the atmosphere to be like when they do return.
Yeah, I think obviously a lot of fans are looking forward to Baker coming back so they can heckle him and express their displeasure with how he dragged our school through the mud and helped the media peddle inaccurate narratives about his entire transfer situation. I asked them to maybe consider that, considering how much he likes the attention and he likes playing with a chip on his shoulder, that the best way to get under his skin is kind of ignore him and just focus on being loud and creating a rowdy atmosphere for the entire Oklahoma team rather than trying to make it personal for Baker. And based on the comments, I don't think anybody's going to listen to me, which I guess is fine. It's a free country, but that's kind of my 2 cents. I think it would actually be better, and it would actually get under his skin and maybe cause him to play a little bit worse if we didn't engage in what everybody's expecting.
Yeah, if it wouldn't be taken the wrong way, I almost prefer like a silent treatment. But it would be taken the wrong way for Tech at this point. But go ahead, Maitland.
I was just going to say, I like that article you wrote, Kyle. I definitely feel that, for your team. Focus on rooting for the Red Raiders and creating a great atmosphere. It's a night game. It's prime time. Fox is going to be broadcasting it live. It's going to big fan of blackouts, when I went to games as a student. It's just and I always love the atmosphere of night games at Tech because there's a good chance that those seats are going to be filled for the entire game and fans are going to be rowdy. And this is Oklahoma. This is probably the biggest home game of the season. But this is a big game. So what? There's a quarterback playing for the other team that used to play for us at one point, and maybe he, dragged us through the mud, like you mentioned, Kyle, and things like that. But just focus on rooting for the team, creating an atmosphere, and staying the whole game. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the budding rivalries in the Big 12, whether Oklahoma wants to say it or not, where you have in the last 10 meetings in Lubbock, it's 6-4, so it's almost 50-50, and that's with the last couple of times in Lubbock, OU getting the better of us. If you go from 05, we won, we lost in 06, could have won in 06, won in 07, obviously lost in 08, won in 09, lost in 10, won in 2011, lost in 2012. It's been almost a back and forth up until recently. So this is one of the games that I know a lot of the former players are big about. They feel like they've exercised a lot of demons here, and they can actually go out and win this game, and they're always pumped for it. So it's gonna be exciting. Now, one thing of note going into this game is Samaje Perine is out 2 to 3 weeks with a pulled muscle. They haven't really disclosed, at least at the time of this podcast that I've seen, what the muscle is. Stoops, like many college coaches, don't disclose a whole lot. Part of that is good. We've talked about it on the baseball pod quite a bit, that you don't necessarily want to disclose injuries for college kids without their consent and doctor's consent and all that stuff. They have a lot of issues there. But Joe Mixon and Abdul Adams will take over most of the carries. Interestingly enough, though, on the depth chart, after Abdul Adams, there isn't another Oklahoma running back. And in the presser, Bob Stoops was talking about pulling another skill player who may have had some experience in high school and giving them a few snaps just in case something happens to Mixon or Abdul Adams. How do you see this affecting the game? How do you see this playing out? I know it's kind of almost a false positive where you don't have to face 2 good running backs. You get to face just one, and against our defense, one is kind of all you need. But at the same time, one is better than 2. At least they won't be able to just rotate through. So how do you see this playing out into the game?
Well, it does feel good to just be facing 1 instead of 2. but Mixon still did well against us last year. He's talented. You could take any Big 12 team knows you can take any one running back on your team and just run the ball 20, 30, 40 times a game if you want, and you're going to rack up yardage. Has been, a thorn in our side the last couple of years, really. It's good that we don't have to worry about P. Ryan, but still, Mixon talented, and who knows? Abdullah could be a household name by the end of this game based on this defense. I mean, come on. I mean, want to believe in this defense that's going to rise to the occasion and just stop Mixon, hold him to 100 yards or something like that. But you can still beat us with one running back. It doesn't take two. It just don't. And we've seen that from past games. So,
what do you got, boss?
I think the biggest factor, first off, I think Joe Mixon's probably the best backup running back in the entire country. But when they were able to kind of spell P. Ryan with Mixon, they were able to get Mixon involved with kick returns, punt returns. He ran a lot of routes, did screens, things like that. But if he's toting the rock 25 times a game, or if he does that 25 times against us on Saturday, it'd be hard to get in the same amount of receptions and the same amount of snaps on special teams. And so I think that's where you'll probably see the biggest difference. He'll probably fill in for P. Ryan running the ball and being a pure running back, and you'll probably see him running less routes and playing less on special teams, which is still, I think that'll be a benefit to Texas Tech. So
yeah, I think Bob Stoops said something about Westbrook taking some punt returns instead of Mixon this week.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that that just happened today that we just found out was Kingsbury made the practice open to students. And they actually had I think the Texas Tech athletic department just put out a video of the team walking from the training facility to the playing field, and they were like high-fiving students as they went. And, the players kind of looked normal. They're just out there trying to look cool. But I saw Kingsbury. He looked pumped. And I saw Gibbs, and he looked happy. And that was just weird because, Gibbs, he seemed very excited and happy to be out there high-fiving with fans. So it was very interesting on that. All right, so let's get to the keys of the game really quick before we close it out. Kyle, your key is to respond to adversity. Go ahead and break it down for us.
Yeah, if you go back a couple weeks, the game against Kansas State did not go as well as you would have hoped. I think you lost one that you definitely could have and should have won. And in response to that, you came out totally flat against West Virginia. Did not respond well to adversity there. And we know the West Virginia game was a disaster. And so you're staring adversity in the face again. And so I think the key to the game is, are they going to get off the mat and show up on Saturday, or are we going to see them come out flat again and just kind of lay down and get hit in the mouth again? I'm not saying necessarily that if they lose, that means that they did not respond well to adversity and that they couldn't get back up for this game. But if we see them just play awful start to finish like we did last week, I think that's a bad sign, and a sign that for the third week in a row, they couldn't get it figured out, couldn't bounce back from some adversity and make things better. And I think that's disappointing if that does happen. And it's going to be a long season if you can't get off the snide and at some point say, okay, it's gone bad so far, but we just need to kind of cut our losses, move on, and figure it out going forward. So that's what I'll be looking for, regardless of what the final score says. It'll be how we respond that I get my biggest takeaway from this game.
Yeah, one of the biggest things as a coach that you try to instill in players is to not worry about the results. The results are going to take care of themselves. And what I see with this team quite a bit is they are so wrapped up in results. They're so wrapped up and scoring. They're so wrapped up in winning and not making a mistake that it doesn't seem like they're, you hear the term all the time, but trusting the process. And that's a big thing when you talk about with players is the process. And just that's the best way to respond to adversity, is not to get caught up in the results that are going on around, but just staying within the moment, within what you can control. Now, Maitland, I did not have time to get your overlay up for your key because you just hopped on saving us, but go ahead and give us your key really quick.
Yeah, well, my key is the offensive line needs to protect Mahomes a lot better. I've said that really for the past few games, but I really mean it this time. The offensive line, you talk about the whole team not really showing up. The offensive line definitely did not. Mahomes was getting hit time and time and time again, on top of the fact that this guy is playing hurt for the last 2 weeks. I just feel like that, I know it's middle of the season and you can't really expect a big leap in terms of offense from what we've seen the last few weeks to all of a sudden being able to block like an NFL caliber line. But if you can't protect a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, who got one of the best quarterbacks in the country behind you, and if you can't protect him and give him time in that pocket to make plays, even scramble around and make some plays, you're not. And outside of that one giant, 50-yard touchdown pass that went to Jonathan Giles in the end zone last week, Mahomes wasn't able to do. And you can't have that in a game like this, especially in a really big bounce back game against your rival in the Oklahoma Sooners. So that's my key. I just really hope that this offensive line will do a better job of protecting Mahomes, if anything, just to make sure that he doesn't get hurt more than he already is.
Great point. My key is be the most excited to play. So it's kind of speaks for itself. You only get 12 of these. If you can't get excited for, your game, your Big 12 game, conference game, whether it's West Virginia, Kansas, Oklahoma, whatever, you're in the wrong sport. And that's not a coaching thing. It's not a rah-rah thing. You need to be self-motivated as a player. You need to have some professionalism about you and get yourself ready to go out there and play a game and execute the plays that you're asked to execute. I think it's just pretty simple. It's one of the three mantras of old Coach Leach. I know a lot of people don't like to hear it, but it's actually a true, it's a true point of coaching is, if you're a player, you need to come out and be the most excited to play. So that's my key. Now let's go quickly as we close out around the Big 12. Any of the games that y'all are interested in? I think the only one that I'm really interested in is TCU West Virginia. You got Oklahoma State and Kansas at 12. You got the Longhorns and Kansas State at 12 as well, or 11 o'clock Central. And then you have TCU and West Virginia as the afternoon game. Any of those jump out at you? Anything you're looking to see?
Well, oddly enough, I'm kind of looking forward to the Kansas State and Texas game, just because Texas came back this past game for them. So it'll be interesting to see if Texas can put together 2 back-to-back conference wins against, middle-of-the-road Big 12 opponents. Obviously, Charlie Strong is on the hot seat, so it's a big game for him, coaching-wise. So I'm a little bit interested in Virginia. Has definitely climbed in the polls and shown they're for real after their beat down against us last week. And TCU is next week, going back on the road to the place where we gave up 82 points in 2014. So I'll be interested to look at them and see what kind of team they got at this point in the season.
Great.
I was in Mrs. Wright's 3rd grade class the last time the Texas Longhorns won a football game in Manhattan, Kansas. So I'm with you. I think that's the one I'll be watching the most.
Well, that was only a couple years ago for you, Kyle. That was, 4 or 5 years ago?
I'm in 9th grade now, yeah. So, But anyway, yeah, but both of those teams are kind of middle of the conference. So it's kind of one of those separation games that could have a lot of bearing on the final standings of the Big 12 when the season's over. TCU, West Virginia as well. I think if West Virginia wins, it kind of solidifies our current perceptions that they're a front runner for the Big 12 title, and that TCU is kind of middle of the road. But if TCU can flip the script, I think, they were within a touchdown of beating Oklahoma, and they are kind of suddenly in the Big 12 title chase, and West Virginia is now playing with one loss, and it might be a 3 or 4 way race at the top. So I think that's an important game as well.
Well, guys, I appreciate it. It's a little bit shorter of a pod than normal, but need to get this up and out of here so we can all meet up in Lubbock. I think it's the first time all of the VTM staffers or most of us are going to be in one place. I don't think we've ever really seen each other in person before either, so it'll be interesting. But thank you guys for coming on. Your opinions, as always, are awesome and on point. We'll have Tremaine Swindle on Sunday, so it'll be posting on Monday as our special guest for the OU game. He'll give us our, the reactions on that one. So that'll be good. Stay tuned for that. Otherwise, enjoy the game. It's a 7 o'clock kickoff Central Time on FS1. And if you're going to the game, it's going to be a beautiful day. Stay there. Make us look good on national television, especially students. If you're a student, it's already paid for. Come on. Just hang out. The best student sections in the world. I will say one thing. I'm not a huge fan of OU, but they have a good student section that actually stays out in the stands during severe weather. And some of that would talk about intelligence factors there, but at the same time, it shows you how much they're willing to support their team and their program. So I really want to see, especially the students, stay there and not leave. Students need to stay there after all the other people, paying customers, leave. But anyway, for Maitland, for Kyle, I'm Ryan. This has been the Air Raid Podcast, brought to you by VivaTheMatadors.com, and we will leave you with the OU hype video. Wreck 'em.
Thank y'all.
As the war between light and darkness continues, heroes and villains become harder to identify. Kindred spirits separated at birth, fighting for their place in time to be solidified. The clock ticks faster and faster while time runs the marathon in this Babylon. But see, the end is only the beginning of the calm before the storm.
I used to dream of success, now success is inadequate. It seems the bigger I get, it's the more they get mad at me. Cause it ain't no rules inside this fight that we battling, and it ain't no leftover scraps. You only eat if you capture it. And I swear it's like a thought reality, but creation needs a devil, the devil needs an advocate, I guess. And I ain't too big on duality, but you think you know me? You ain't seen the half of me. So fly, no gravity, so high, Mount Everest. And the show must go on, yes, but I don't have to act it. And they don't make a television that handles the frequencies of my channel. And it ain't no computer that can hack it, it just don't have the capacity. Hell no, it ain't having it. You hustle, well, we arguing hustle, no, we mastered it. Y'all working on y'all bachelors, we ball like we athletes. Treat wine out of chalices on Sunday like we Catholics. If this is an embassy, consider me ambassador. Official, no artificial preservatives or additives. I love it all, but I ain't attached to it. They call it some game because it is exactly. And it seems like in the grand scheme of it all, the world's run by a few people and we never seen them at all. How do they exist if we don't know who they are? They could be you, they could be me, they could be queens and gods. Some say they were slaves, an alien race created us all from a distant star. Some say through revolution we evolved. But if anything, what you finna see is a change, don't be alarmed. And whoever they are, well, I think that it's time we start taking charge. Rules, laws, you can be whatever you want. You can be a star with a car, with a house made out of gold. In the springs, or the falls, you can never see it all. If you don't know what I mean, have you seen Niagara Falls? Man, I swear this world is ours, but I've just been pushed too far. Now I be beastin' up on these bars. Freak out, I beat it and beat it up raw. Good God, if I go this hard, by the time I'm 90, I won't need Viagra, no. Even if I had a dog, I'd be the case middle fingers straight at the law. Sincerely yours, so proud of your Lord. Cause this is a war, ain't talking about bullets and swords.
As the mask of deception falls off the face of humanity, unveiling the grim reality of duality in which everyone is a casualty, no one will be exempt. Truth has many shades. It's not a matter of black and white, but gray. Although many, we are one. So in the final analysis, could it be we're fighting a war that can't be won?